Nadine Kagi is a designer and DJ living in Zurich. She's also a very keen photographer. Right now, she's about to embark on the photographic adventure of a lifetime, exploring EOS. Nadine has come to South Africa to meet 4 top photographers and discover how the Canon EOS system can help her improve her photography.
All I know now about photography, I know that from the internet or from books, and for me it's a big adventure to meet all those pro photographers and to learn from them.
She'll be getting expert guidance in landscape, portrait, macro and wildlife photography and coming back with some really good pictures. But first, Nadine comes to meet David Newton, technical editor of the Canon Professional Network, to find out more about what the EOS system offers and what it can do for her.
Right, Nadine, we're going to talk about the Canon EOS 500D. It's a really good introduction to the Canon EOS system. So it's a very simple to use camera that will help you get great results, but it's also got some advanced photographic features. It's a 15.1 megapixel camera with an integrated dust cleaning system which will help keep those horrible dust specks off your pictures. It's got some really quite advanced photographic features, but it's also really simple to use, meaning you don't need to know a huge amount about photography to be able to get some great pictures from it. So the 15 megapixel sensor is going to allow you to get really high resolution pictures. You can zoom in, crop into your pictures, and really still capture an awful lot of detail there. Now, if you're shooting in low light, the ISO range that goes to 3200 as standard or 12800 as an expansion setting means you can still get fast shutter speeds, enough to hand hold the picture and still get good sharp results. There's also a 9-point autofocus tracking system. So if you're photographing a moving subject, for example, you can keep it sharp, and with 3.4 frames a second shooting, you make sure you're not going to miss the moment either. Now, if you don't want to play with stills all the time, there's a full high-def movie capability, so you can shoot 720 and 1080p. This means you can mix together some stills and some video and get a really nice multimedia presentation of the stuff that you're shooting. And as part of the Canon EOS system, it's compatible with the complete range of EF and EFS lenses, as well as the EX speed lights. So you've got a lot of versatility there to be able to tackle pretty much any subject you can come across. Canon's known for their range of lenses, and with a complete range of over 60, there's a lens to suit almost any situation you're likely to encounter, from shooting football down the park, to portraits at a wedding, or even flowers in your garden. Standard lenses are exactly that. They cover the standard focal range and have a field of view similar to that of the human eye. This means they're great for most standard general-purpose shooting situations you're likely to encounter, and they're available as a kit lens with most EOS models, for example the EFS 15 to 85. Because they're useful for this general shooting situation, unless you're shooting something specific, this is the lens you probably want to keep on the camera most of the time. Wide-angle lenses, for example the EFS 10 to 22, are for when you want to get more in your shot, or when you want to add some strong perspective to create drama in an image. With a wide-angle lens, you can step back from your subject and include some more of the environment, or you can get close and add quite a lot more power to the picture.
Sounds like that would be perfect for landscapes?
Exactly that. They're great for shooting landscapes because they allow you to capture a sweeping vista. Telephoto lenses can be used to bring a subject closer to you or to pick out details in a scene. Lenses like the EFS 55 to 250mm will make it easy to do this. If you've got a very distant subject, or one that you can't get close to, then a super telephoto lens is what you need. These lenses have a focal length of 300mm or longer, like this EF 500mm f4. They're regularly used to shoot sports and wildlife, as they allow you to gain a shallow depth of field and make your subject really stand out from the background. The Canon extenders are available in 2 strengths, both 1.4 times and 2 times magnification, and they can be added to a selection of the Canon EF lens range. They effectively lengthen the focal length of your lens. So for example, if we take this EF 1.4 times, and we add it to a 500mm f4 like this, we end up with a focal length of 700mm. Macro lenses are for photographing smaller subjects. A true macro lens gives life-size reproduction, where 1 centimetre in real life is recorded as 1 centimetre on the camera sensor. The L-series 100mm macro lens is a great example of this. It allows you to get in close and so to concentrate your lens on small subjects like insects and flowers.
Can you use them to shoot anything other than pure macro?
Yes, you can actually. The macro lenses, like the 60mm and the 100mm, are a great focal length for shooting portraits as well. For landscape and architectural photography, the tilt and shift lenses are great because they allow you to control perspective and so avoid the problems of converging verticals. You can also adjust the plane of focus of the lens and so finely control the depth of field in your image. The TSE 24mm f3.5L Mark II lens is a great example of this, and with that focal length, it's brilliant for capturing landscapes or architectural shots. Most EOS models feature a built-in flash. While the built-in flash is great in many situations, if you want to move your flash techniques on a little bit, you need to consider some of the external speedlights. Now, while most people think that flash is only useful when the light levels fall, in truth it's really good when the sun's high and the light levels are bright. You can use an external speedlight just to add in a little bit of extra light and so fill in some of those harsh shadows and create a more pleasing or flattering result, particularly when shooting portraits. The smallest and most portable of the external speedlight flashes is the 270EX. This is a lot like a more powerful built-in flash, but it also offers the ability to tilt the head up and so bounce the flash off a ceiling or a wall to create a softer result. As your skills with speedlights improve, you may want to consider the 430EX Mark II. This is not just a more powerful speedlight, but also offers other advantages. For example, you can use it not just as a single speedlight, but as part of a wireless multiple flash setup, where it can act as a wireless slave.
When might I use that sort of setup?
Well, you use that sort of setup if you're photographing a portrait, for example, where you want a light coming from the front, and perhaps a second light coming from behind. For situations where you want full control of your flash, or where you're looking to make use of advanced speedlight techniques, such as second curtain sync or strobe flash, the 580EX Mark II will fulfill all your needs. Now, while the external speedlights are great, if you're more interested in the macro world, then you should take a look at the MR14EX. This is a macro ring light designed specifically for use with the macro lenses. It will provide a nice, soft, even illumination to your small subjects. It can also be used as a wireless master to control slave flashes in more complex flash arrangements. Well, that's all the equipment. I'm sure you're going to go and get some really good pictures.
Thanks, I'm looking forward to it.
With the EOS system to support her every step of the way, Nadine's journey starts in the Cape's beautiful wine-growing region, where she joins up with travel photographer Dwayne Howard. Dwayne begins with some basics of composition.
So here we are, amongst the vineyards, early morning.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Basically what rule of thirds is that the image is divided into 3 sections. So you've got your bottom section, your middle section, your top section, and then you've got your left-hand side, right-hand side, and middle section. And if you can just visually imagine those lines crossing over each other, what it does is it gives you 4 points where those lines meet, and those people refer to as the power points. If you put your subject matter on any one of those 4 points, it's just going to create a stronger image. Here's a perfect example where you've got the lower section being the vineyards, the middle section being the water, and the background, the top section would be your background, which would be your mountains. And then you can maybe use something like one of these pillars to put in one of those PowerPoints, or you could use the tree to put in one of those PowerPoints, just so that there's something to focus on so it doesn't just become very busy. So for this shot, what we're using is the kit lens, which comes with the camera. It's a 18 to 55mm, which is nice and versatile for all different kinds of photography. I'm putting it onto landscape mode, and what landscape mode does is it's automatically going to set your f-stops to the smallest amount, well, the smallest size, which will obviously give you maximum depth of field. What the camera also does when set in landscape mode is it prevents the flash from firing. So something to always keep in mind is maybe to have a tripod handy, because under low light conditions, because of the aperture now closing down, it's going to slow down your shutter speed. So you're going to need a tripod to stabilize your image. Just something to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you.
The light's still not that high, so we're still getting a bit of backlight. It's lightening up the grass quite nicely and bringing out the purple in the flowers.
For shooting in black and white, Nadine simply switches to black and white picture style.
So it's lunchtime now. I think the sun's getting a bit high for us to be shooting out there.
Yeah.
I think the best thing to do is to take advantage of these trees and use the shade together with the mottled light coming through. A lot of the time people think landscapes, they only think outdoors, open, wide landscapes, but yeah, we've got some nice architecture that I think we can possibly use as a focal point.
Yeah, great.
Well, another thing that's very important about landscape photography is your filters. You've always got to have a good range of filters, your ND filters, your graduation filters, and I think for this, a polarizing filter is going to come in quite handy. If you have a look there, if you turn it like this, you see there what it does to the blue skies. It brings out that strong blue and takes off all the glare off the green leaves. So I'm going to give you the polarizer to play with. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to change lenses. I'm going to go into maybe a 70 to 200, 55 to 250, just something longer to compress the perspective a little bit, basically giving you a more graphic two-dimensional image, which I think will work quite well for this because it becomes quite overwhelming when you've got such an amazing landscape. There's so much to photograph. What's quite nice with the long lenses, you get to pick out certain elements.
Sounds good.
So I think let's go ahead and do that.
Let's do it.
Next morning, Dwayne takes Nadine to a very different kind of scenery with its own kind of photographic challenges.
So with the waterfall shot we're going to be doing now, obviously our main concern is to ensure that we've got the right shutter speed. So to do that, we're going to set the camera onto shutter priority. I think to get around 1 second should give us a nice blur of the water. Also, at the same time, we've got to keep in mind that we want to ensure that we get maximum depth of field. So because we're shooting in the middle of the day, I think we're going to have to put on a full ND filter. Shooting at such a slow shutter speed, we're going to have to make sure we're on tripod at all times, using a cable release so that there's no camera shake whatsoever. And also something to always remember is to put the camera onto long exposure noise reduction, just to make sure that if there is any noise, the camera will get rid of that for you. I think we've got some interest in the foreground. The colours on the rocks are quite nice, and you've got the falling water right in the foreground. I think that blur would create a nice effect and lead the eye nicely into the image. So, won't you pass me my camera, please? I'm just going to pop it on the tripod. Cheers. Thank you very much. So I've got my image framed up. What I'm going to do is just put the body onto TV mode so that I can set my shutter speed onto 1 second, just so that I'm 100% sure we've got enough blur in the water. Also just need to set the ND so that we've got nice f-stop that we're working with. Put it on the eyepiece cover to ensure that we're not getting any light leaking into the body. Then I think we should be good to go. so I think we've got that shot. So let's go and find a nice spot for a sunset.
The day ends with the landscape that no photographer coming to Cape Town can ignore.
To get a nice sunspot, what you need to do is you just shoot on a higher f-stop number, f16, f22. One of the things that I really liked about the 500D is it's lightweight and compact. You can carry it with you without lugging too much gear around. But at the same time, you can still change lenses. So it gives you more versatility than your average kind of point and shoot camera. But at the same time, you can still put it into point and shoot mode and you'll get great pictures out of it. I must say I've really enjoyed this time teaching Nadine and showing her the landscape of South Africa. And I think also it takes me back to when I used to lecture just after I was finished studying. I think it's quite rewarding when you can motivate someone into photography, which is something I have a passion for. It's nice when you can get that same enthusiasm and that same passion out of someone else.
It was a big pleasure working with Wayne. He taught me a lot. I know now about the rule of thirds, how to compose. He also taught me about how to shoot directly into the sun and how to get a nice picture out of it. So I really learned a lot from him.
The next stage of Nadine's adventure is in the company of Lambro, one of South Africa's leading people photographers.
So Nadine, today I would like to take you to this township called Khayelitsha, just out of Cape Town at New Crossroads, where I've met and have been invited to take pictures of these kids, and it's a project that's very close to my heart and it's very interesting. So today we'd like to shoot a series of portraits in their homes, and then after that they're playing a soccer game. I've seen the kids and they're great. So Nadine, here we are in New Crossroads. We're going to visit my little friend, Sweet Short. His name's Buntu and his family, and all the kids should be waiting here for us. Hey guys, molo molo kudin. This is Sweet Short. Wow, Abigail, it's such a beautiful house. Nice, thank you.
With her 270EX pointing straight at Buntu's family, Nadine is having trouble getting a good shot. The direct light isn't flattering her subjects, so she tilts the flash head and bounces the light off the ceiling, giving a softer, more natural effect.
What I really like about this camera is the fact that it's got a portrait mode and a sports mode, and in the case of how I work, it offers me with great simplicity, great results. In addition, I'm using the little 270EX flash, which is very versatile. You can use it in a bounce mode and it offers you wonderful light. What I was thinking of, what's really nice is if we set up these guys here somewhere, this really works quite nicely. I think the colorway that we have for the contrast is really nice. And I think also very important, the light. We've got really nice light this morning. The good thing about the portrait mode is obviously that you can do continuous shooting action. So it means if we miss a shot, you're getting, models blink their eyes sometimes in that. You capture the sequential shots, which are really nice, and you'll get the good picture. The other good thing about the portrait mode is the depth of field is very narrow. We lose the background, we get nice separation of the subject between them and the background. So that's really nice in portraiture. It's a very important detail to have. I think it's time to take a beautiful picture.
Yeah?
So yeah, shoot it.
Okay guys, please look at me. Yes, so like that. And give me a really nice smile.
Wow, that's nice. I like that composition very much. I mean, as a possibility, what could also work if you try vertical, I think that could also just change your whole idea of how it looks. And because you have 3 kids, it's great. So try if you want.
Yes, let's try.
Okay, good. I think portraiture is probably also a very difficult discipline, and it's all about choosing your subject matter. And one looks essentially for character in people that you're photographing, and the kind of honesty that is projected from the person and the personality that is conveyed through what you see. And I guess it's also one's own responsibility to accurately depict that in portraits. What drew me particularly to portraits and sports, although they kind of on the other side of the spectrum, they have lots of things in common. For me, sports is an action moment where you capture vital energy in movement, whether it's soccer, rugby. And then we go to portraiture. Portraiture is all about people and relating to people in the context, showing the honesty, the emotive quality that people have, and I have an affinity for working with people, so I'm really drawn to portraiture.
They then get the chance to put the camera through its paces shooting action as the new Crossroads superstars take on one of their local rivals.
The fact that one can work and express oneself in movement, and I think it's very important in sport, but similarly in the realm of portraiture, that you're working with people in a way that's very rewarding in terms of what you get out of people, and especially in photography as an art form. That one moment is just a fraction of time, and yeah, unless you said you're watching a professional game, he has a corner. Yeah, it's just anything can happen all of the time and different things. So you almost want to get the innocence of the game and make it fun in a way.
To help her follow the action and take lots of frames to capture the key moments, Nadine is using sports mode. This sets continuous shooting and tracking autofocus.
What is vital in sport is understanding the nature of the sport, so you can predict the action that's going to take place. For me, in action, it's very important to capture the central moment. So it's something that's almost suspended in animation. It's the flight of the ball before it enters the net, or the moment of the impact of the ball. So it's just the vital energy that's conveyed, and you get a sense of the whole drama. So it's like shooting an entire film, but you've only got one picture to tell the story.
After the match, Nadine and Lambro celebrate the team's victory with a portrait at their school.
I think to connect with your subject in portraiture is vital, and I think it takes a lot of time in fomenting a relationship and an honesty, which then opens the channels for one to get the results that you wish to get. So now we're shooting with the 18 to 55 kit lens, which is really nice because it's very versatile, and for portraits, and especially in a small environment that we're working in, it covers us very well. Okay, so what I'd like to concentrate is how I'm going to put this team together using just the basic shapes, the size of the case. And I think the big guys we put in the back, the little guys we stick in the front because they're really cute. And we just create like a box with a little pyramid on the top, being the big guys. So yeah, that's my feeling, and I mean, they're great. They're my superstars. Shall we shoot them? If you're a bit on the side, you're a bit skewed. Let's come inside for a minute. That's good. Okay, let's go, guys. Okay, let's do the happy one now. No more sad, eh? Okay, happy, happy. Oh, that's beautiful, guys.
After the vibrant life of the township, Nadine experiences a complete change of pace as she meets well-travelled nature photographer Paul Braham in the tranquil surroundings of Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens.
Hey Nadine, welcome to Kirstenbosch Gardens.
Thanks.
Come and have a look here. This is why I brought you all the way up here. The sun's just risen. We're in a really beautiful place. And we've got South Africa's national flower, which is the protea. And of the proteas, this is the king protea, which is the big, beautiful, dramatic one. We're starting with quite a wide-angle lens. It's a beautiful vista, and we capture the flower in its environment. I want to catch that gentle light that's just touching the top of the bushes and trees in the distance. Now, one of the challenges here is the fact that I've got the sun coming up right in the background.
Yeah.
Now, on this particular shot, I don't actually want to look right into the sun, but I do want all that beautiful backlight. Okay, Nadine, on this camera, a really useful function is this live view, which I can activate with that button there. See, the picture comes up and it's divided into a grid. Now, the first thing you notice is that little white block, which I can move around the screen of these buttons here. And what I'll do is I'll pick a point of the picture that I want to get my focus on perfectly. So it's over that petal there. I'm going to zoom in 5 times, which allows me to make sure my focus is absolutely spot on. And in fact, I can zoom in even further. I can go in 10 times. Okay, so there you are. It's absolutely spot on. And the next really useful thing here is the display button, which brings up different bits of information. The first time I'll push it, I'll get my shutter speed, my aperture, my ISO rating, the battery condition. And if I push it again, it'll show me the settings that I've chosen to set the camera to. It's all up there, useful information for me to refer to. And finally, the live view histogram, which is really useful for making sure your exposure is just spot on. So I've got it on there now. I'm going to change my shutter speed a bit just to get that just right. You'll see the information. It hasn't gone over the edges. It's all within that histogram, and that's how I want it. And there we go, we take the shot. That's good. Hey Nadine, it's midday in the garden,
Yeah.
and it's really bright and the sun's right above us. So everything's going to be quite challenging to try and photograph. So we're going to put the camera to the test and photograph some really bright white flowers here. So these are really good for us, so let's give it a shot. Now I'm going to set the camera to close-up mode, and that shows the little picture of a flower. And what that's going to do is it's going to try and minimize camera shake. That's going to be the most important thing it's going to do. And after that, it's going to give me the best depth of field it can, okay? And the other things it's going to do, it's going to give me one-shot AF, okay? And it's going to give me single-shot shooting. Yeah. And what may happen is the flash will pop up if it thinks it needs a bit more light, which today it won't, because it's really sunny. So I'm going to go in and see if I can get a nice shot here. And I can frame it up, and it's ideal for this kind of shot where your subject is about this distance away and about 10 or 15 centimeters wide. And there we go. Yeah, look at that, it's come out really nicely.
Yeah.
Lots of detail, and it is really close up. You always start with trying to show what the thing really is, and then as you work into it, you peel away the layers, you get into that whole abstract. You know, you go beyond the obvious, and you start looking for those kind of wonderful colors, wonderful shapes that you don't notice with your naked eye, that only jump out at you when you've got a macro lens in your camera. Hey Nadine, I see you trying to get some shots here of this flower. Now, for this, I see you looking into the light, so everything's backlit. So what's going to happen, you're going to end up with quite a lot of contrast. So first of all, you've got this lens hood on, which is helping with a flare coming into the camera, which is definitely a good tip. The next thing to do is to give you some light with a reflectant. So this is going to fill up the shot and make it more interesting and kind of make that flower jump out.
Yeah. Looks great. Thanks. So what are you looking for specifically if you'd like to shoot a nice macro?
Well, in a place like this where everything is kind of green, you want to look for colors that stand out, and this is a very good example. This is, you've got really bright yellows and oranges and reds, so you've got 3 different colors and the background of green. Or you paint a picture of different colors and you find a blue plant in the background or a pink one with an orange in the front, and that one in the background you put out of focus and it becomes a patch of beautiful color. These pink and purple flowers here, these are really delicate flowers and they make great wide shots. You've got your wide angle lens on there and getting close in and showing the detail of the foreground.
Paul then takes Nadine on another kind of macro shoot with subjects that move.
Right, we've come to Butterfly World today to try out some new techniques, and one of the techniques today is going to be working without a tripod. Now, macro work or close-up work without a tripod is very, very challenging. But your first step is choosing the aperture you want, which we'll be going for nice wide apertures to get narrow depth of field, get everything in the background out of focus. We'll then move on to speed, choose our shutter speed, which will be always in relation to the lens you're using. So if you're using a 60mm lens, you'll use a 60th of a second as your minimum speed. If you're using a 100mm lens, you'll use a 100th of a second as your minimum speed. Quite straightforward. And lastly, once we've got those two decided on, we will use the ISO to make sure our exposure is then correct.
So if you'd like to get these nice motion blur effects on the butterfly's wings, what shall I do then?
What you need to do is you need a fairly slow shutter speed, but you don't want to go too slow because then the whole butterfly is going to be blurred, not just the wings, and you want to avoid that. So you'll go back to that rule of the slowest shutter speed will be according to the size of the lens. So that way you should be able to get the body of the butterfly nice and sharp, and yet the shutter speed is slow enough to give you a blur. We've come to a butterfly farm to help replicate the conditions you might find in a forest, which is dark and gloomy and really quite challenging to take pictures in. And I've got the standard 18 to 55mm lens in here. But in order to get really close, a good alternative to a macro lens is this extension tube. Your lens comes off, that's the extension tube there. That's really simple to use, it's got no glass in it. Pops onto the camera, straight onto the body, clips in the way a lens does, and your lens clips right in on top of that. Really simple. We're going to give it a try there and see the results. They're very sensitive to movement, so we've got to go in there really gently so not to scare them off. And don't forget that when you come out, be just as careful because you may need a second shot. This is an amazing shot. What I really like about the 500D is the fact that it's really easy to use. It's very light to carry around. Close-up function, which is taking care of all the technical side of close-up photography. The camera has live view mode, which allows you to zoom in and get the perfect focus, and at the same time judge your exposure perfectly. And these are two critical things for macro photography.
The camera made it really easy for me to take some great macro photography. I'll go and do some more, definitely.
Nadine moves on to meet marine biologist and wildlife photographer Fergus Kennedy.
So Nadine, we're at the coast here in Gansby, and if you come with me, I've got something pretty surprising to show you. We've got here these southern right whales, and they've migrated up here from feeding around the Antarctic. They swim up here, and because this is a good sheltered bay, they can breed here. There's mating, you can see the calves, mother and calf there. Even the calves are quite big. They're kind of anything from about 4.5 metres to 7.5 metres long. I've brought a variety of zoom lenses with me today, 100 to 400, which gives you the best reach you can really, you know, for the money. You can get in nice and tight, gives you plenty of reach, get really close to your subject with the 400mm end, zoom out a little bit for a bit more context to your image. But you don't always have to have this, you know, really powerful telephoto or a powerful zoom. You can go for a more versatile lens like the 18 to 200, which will give you that really good range. You can go for a much wider view like this. We've got the subject really nice and close, and you can get a kind of environmental portrait with a bit of the surroundings in. You can get the kelp here in the foreground, the beaches in the distance, and the mountain. And so that's a great one. Or of course the 18 to 55 plus the 55 to 250. That's also a really versatile combination for wildlife. You know, a lot of wildlife doesn't need these really powerful ones. Probably best to use it with a polarizer today to get rid of the reflection on the water and get a bit of colour back into the sky. Let's see if we can get some shots of this mother and calf interacting. If we're lucky, we might even see them breaching, which is when they jump out of the water.
That would be very nice.
You have to have really fast reactions to catch that one on your camera. All of these lenses have got image stabilization on them. So that's really handy, particularly on a boat. But with the image stabilization, that's great. You can still shoot at a relatively low shutter speed and get some really nice, sharp shots. Pretty special to be able to see them that close. Yeah, this has got to be mating because they're lying on their sides and their tails are sticking out sideways. See the paler patches they've got near the head? These are callosities. And if you can get a really tight photo of those, the pattern of the callosities is almost like a human fingerprint. Yeah, this animal is probably about maybe 13 metres or so.
No photographic trip to South Africa would be complete without shooting some of the country's fantastic array of wildlife. So Nadine's final expedition is to a game reserve.
We're at Buffelsfontein Game Reserve. The sun's just coming up. It's a fantastic place and we should get some really special shots in this light. We've come to this game reserve. Fantastic morning, and here we are on a lovely high spot. We get panoramic views of this whole habitat. You can see a group of wildebeest. I think there are some zebra there as well. So in a minute what we're going to do is take the vehicle, get as close as we can. Want to be really careful to always approach from downwind because they catch your scent very easily. And we've got some lovely light today, so we should get some fantastic shots. Yeah. The 500D is a great camera for wildlife. Of the basic modes you have, the sport mode is probably the most suitable for wildlife, especially if it's moving around a lot. We've got some Cape buffalo over here. Can you see them just over there? So hopefully we'll be able to get a bit closer to them and get some nice shots. If they suddenly start moving, the quickest thing to do is just switch it onto sports mode. What that does is it gives you a nice fast shutter speed, for one thing. You've got a fast frame rate as well, and you've also got the tracking autofocus. Obviously now we don't need to do that, but it's good to know that just to be ready for when the action starts. There's a bontebok over there. That's an interesting animal. In 1930, there were only 27 of those left. Now the populations are quite healthy again. It's a conservation success story.
As a final challenge, Fergus takes Nadine and her camera to shoot birds in flight.
Well, on the 500D, I can use back button focus for this. If I just go across to custom functions, select custom function number 10, and what this does is it uses the AE lock button to activate autofocus instead of the shutter release button, so the two functions are now independent of one another. The kit lenses can be very versatile for a range of different wildlife situations. Right from a wide situation where you want to get the animal in its habitat to a much closer, tighter composition.
What I enjoyed most during those 2 days with Fergus was his huge knowledge about the wildlife. He told me how to approach the wildlife best and to predict how they're going to behave, and that helped me a lot to get some really, really nice shots.
And I hope the whole trip has been really useful and informative to you, and good luck with your photography in the future.
I enjoyed my trip to South Africa a lot. I had really wonderful, nice, overwhelming, superb days. The photographers helped me a lot, they showed me a lot. I think I can take back a huge backpack of knowledge for photography back home to Switzerland, and I think these days took me to the next level in photography.
If you'd like to continue your photographic journey and find out even more about the EOS system, take a look at the extras on this DVD or visit the Canon website.